Hello friends! You're on the Last Days channel. Thank you so much for your engagement and support. And so, a review of events for December 16th and 17th. Beijing, China. A sharp cold snap has arrived in China after heavy snowfalls hit Beijing and caused chaos in the city of about 22 million people. The snowfalls have affected power supplies and the country's transportation network, so officials have been ordered to increase supplies of coal, electricity, oil, and gas. The President of the People's Republic of China called on all relevant departments to make maximum efforts to ensure safety in winter conditions. Snow continues to fall in and around Beijing. After an unusually warm fall, temperatures have plummeted to sub-zero levels. Meteorologists across China have issued warnings of low temperatures and strong winds. According to them, the cold wave will bring icy winds across the country. And such weather conditions will continue into next week. Madrid, Spain. A large fire broke out in the locality of Paracuelos de Jarama in the province of Madrid, completely destroying 3 businesses. The fire was reported on Saturday. The total area of the fire exceeded 5,000 square meters. 12 fire brigades immediately went to the scene of the emergency. The fire was extinguished all night. Firefighters managed only to prevent the flames from spreading to neighboring buildings. The buildings, which were first covered by fire, burned completely. Inside the premises there were flammable interior items made of wood. There were no fatalities or injuries. The causes of the fire are still unclear. Kamchatka. After the storm that hit Kamchatka, several villages were threatened with flooding. Water from the Bering Sea and the Sea of Irkutsk came as close as houses in northern villages such as Asora, Ivashka, Karaga, and Vivenka. Some of them even lack electricity. Heavy precipitation, gale-force winds and poor visibility have led to partial traffic restrictions. Local residents have already started preparing boats in case of flooding. Flooding and overflow of sand spits are expected on the northeastern coast of the peninsula near the villages of Timlit, Ilperskoy, Apukat, and Korf. Authorities say the situation is under control, but a section of highway in the USD Bolsheretsky district of Kamchatka is closed due to unfavorable weather conditions. No information on casualties has been reported yet. Selangor, Malaysia. Heavy rains and windy weather led to terrible flooding in Malaysia. Especially affected was the state of Selangor in the west of the peninsula, where several major cities went underwater. The most critical situation was in the settlements of Kuala Terengganu, Kelantan, and Puchong, where squares, streets, houses and stores were flooded. Thousands of cars are covered to the roof with water, and people are forced to walk waist-deep, and in some places knee-deep in water. The number of evacuees is growing, not only from cities but also from rural areas where farmland has been flooded and water is standing in rooms. Many have been forced to leave their homes and are heading to temporary accommodation centers. 37 camps have been opened in 6 districts, where more than 3,000 people have already moved. Water levels in local rivers at 5 major stations in the state have exceeded critical marks, and water is not leaving the settlements. Rescuers and military are involved in evacuation of residents. They bypass settlements and help to move to safe places. So far, there is no information about victims and casualties. Moscow, Russia. Cyclone Vanya has hit Moscow with strong wind and snowfall. The capital's public utilities are working around the clock to clear the streets of snow. In some areas, the height of snowdrifts reaches 50 centimeters. There are many accidents on the roads and 9-point traffic jams have formed. It is recommended to use public transportation in the coming days due to worsening road conditions. The cost of cabs has doubled. The city administration reports that 50% of the monthly rainfall has already fallen in 2 days. Cyclone Vanya is expected to stay in Moscow until the beginning of next week, after which rains and fall will come. Moscow residents are advised to refrain from using personal transportation and be careful on slippery roads in the coming days. Santa Fe, Argentina. Argentina was hit by a devastating storm. The Santa Fe province was particularly affected. Hurricane winds tore up trees, tore down metal structures and tore down power lines. Tens of thousands of people were left without light because of the devastation. According to the latest data, more than 320 millimeters of precipitation fell. The city sewage system could not cope with such a volume of precipitation, and water flooded the streets of the city. The media reports about 2 deaths from the bad weather. Several other residents were injured and taken to hospital. Emergency services have declared a yellow weather danger level and advise people to stay indoors. Those whose homes have been destroyed have been evacuated to temporary shelters. Another storm is expected to hit in the coming hours. Irkutsk. A mass traffic accident occurred on the road in Irkutsk due to a burst water pipe. On Mayakovskaya Street there was a communal accident of bursting of pipes with hot water due to abnormal frosts in this region. Water got on the roadway and ice formed on the road. As a result, 18 cars, 2 trucks and a bus collided at the site. 1 person was hospitalized. Another victim was treated by the rescuers who arrived. The road is now blocked. Police officers are working at the scene. Also, the city authorities sent their emergency service vehicles to warn the drivers and passengers. Florida, United States. The storm that forecasters warned about has reached the southeastern United States. Florida was the first to feel its impact. Residents of the state are preparing for rain, gusty winds, landslides, and possible flooding. The downpours have already begun and palm trees are bending in the wind. Experts warn of possible tornado formation in the south of the peninsula due to this weather. Warnings about strong winds up to 90 kilometers per hour and possible flooding, announced throughout the territory of Florida. Near the coastal areas affected by Hurricanes Jan and Nicole, there is a high risk of flooding and beach erosion. More than 21,000 people were left without electricity due to the effects of the elements. Repair crews are working around the clock, but difficult conditions are making it difficult to restore infrastructure. There is no information about casualties or fatalities yet. Republic of Kazakhstan. In Kazakhstan, due to bad weather in 6 regions closed roads. The situation is difficult in Zambil and Turkestan regions. Blizzard has been raging there for several days, and wind gusts reach 50 meters per second. An emergency regime has been declared in Zambil region. In the districts of Kordaysky and Shuga, the weather has sharply deteriorated, heavy snowstorm, zero visibility, wind with gusts up to 50 meters per second. Rescuers, medics and policemen are on duty on the highways. For several days, rescuers have evacuated almost 5,000 people from the rubble. This has never happened before in their practice. People were taken to special centers where they were provided with overnight accommodation and hot meals. The bad weather is also affecting the work of railroad workers in Zambil region. The railroad tracks are completely covered with snow. This has caused disruptions and delays in train schedules. Castellón de la Plana, Spain. A forest fire has created an emergency situation in the province of Castellón de la Plana, Spain. The fire, which started due to an accident on a highway, quickly spread to the forest area, causing concern among local residents and authorities. Rescue services have brought in helicopters and a waterplane to extinguish the fire and help victims. There is no information yet on the cause of the accident, but residents are already preparing for possible evacuation. Caxias do Sul, Brazil. Downpours, hurricane and floods hit the Brazilian state of Rio Grande do Sul, causing extensive damage. The most affected city was Caxias do Sul. The air was filled with pieces of torn tents and marquees, as well as other items torn down by the elements. According to local media, at least one person died when his car was hit by part of a shed blown down by the storm. Another 12 people were injured in Sierra Gausca when a structure in front of a shopping center collapsed. The storm, moving at 80 kilometers per hour, felled trees and caused power lines to break. Some communities were left without power. The start time of restoration work is still unknown.
Meu Deus do céu! A gente acabou de... Olha as pessoas! Meu Deus! Olha, gente!
Omsk, Russia. A real hunt for roe deer has begun in Omsk. Residents of the city, faced with an unusual phenomenon, graceful animals began to come out of the forest and get stuck in the urban development. People take on the role of defenders, catching the animals, but the number of roe deer continues to increase. Scientists believe that the reason for this behavior was the sudden abnormal cold weather and lack of food due to snowfalls.